You ready? You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. There we go. All right. 3, 2. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, days, and gays. This is the Real Pineapple. This is your humble host, Hunter, here from an undisclosed location in the horrendously hot Nevada. God help us all. Climate change isn't real, my ass. Uh, so, uh, but I hope you're all having a good day, weekend, whenever you're checking this out. I am honored to go ahead and have director, writer, with his new film Goldilocks and the Two Bears. I won't lie, definitely sounds like it could be an awesome gay rom-com. It's slightly different than this, but I've got Jeff Lipsky here. Jeff, how you doing, sir?
Yeah, okay, that's one. Okay, that's one down, 19 to go.
There you go. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing really well. I really appreciate you making the time. Thank you so much. Um,
Oh, it's my pleasure.
so I'm gonna go ahead and just dive in here. So you've obviously done several projects, Flannel Pajamas, Last Nazi, 1230. But reading what you had to say about the film, your statement about this film, I found it really interesting that you said that you believe that this is your best film to date. Why do you think that that's the case?
Well, I think it is because each time I write a film, my goal, no matter how out of left field a character is that I conjure up, my goal is that anybody watching the movie can identify with some aspect of the character. And if I do, I think that's what movies are all about. You want to be able to really get underneath the skin of the character, feel like you're living that character a little bit yourself. And in this movie, there are three main characters, and I think they are identifiable in one way or another because it's still an unusual story.
Oh yeah.
Decidedly not a fairy tale. But then again, back in the 40s and 50s, all the Disney animated classics were not really fairy tales. They were
True.
pretty serious stuff. So, but it's that aspect of conjuring up fictional characters that almost anybody can find aspects with that they can identify.
I mean, I would argue myself that this is more like a grim fairy tale because when I saw the title, I had that same thought of like, oh, okay, this feels like it might be a spoof. By the time this does come out, the film will be available for people to see in theaters. So I am going to get a little spoilery. I will just say off the bat, um, Ian gave me bad vibes. Just, just out the box. I was like, I don't know about this guy. He's giving me very Danger Will Robinson Danger vibes. And the more that he continued to talk from a philosophy perspective, I really did find myself kind of going like I'm getting more and more uneasy. Is Ian based on someone, like, or are you taking like parts from people to make Ian? Because Ian for me, I would say, felt like probably the most personal character, but almost with how would I phrase this, almost like using the his philosophy as a smokescreen for darker intentions. So yeah, can you talk to me about writing him specifically?
Yeah, sure. No, I conjured him up from whole cloth, really. But I wanted to create a character who, as you suggest, could easily be a dangerous individual. He's also an intellectual individual. This lovely young woman who's hit the road hitchhiking to realize her dreams. By the time they get to their destination, she's well versed in equal parts of Nietzsche and hard drugs. And yet she comes to trust this man with her life. even
Yeah.
though by the time she reached Las Vegas, which wasn't her original intention, she is an addict. And she's addicted to drugs. She's also addicted to Ian. And at one point, she tells this young woman, the Goldilocks doppelganger character, that this man Ian, in fact, saved his life at one point.
Yeah.
Uh, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly of somebody who may be threatening or who may be a savior-like character, and you just never know. And when Ivy, this Goldilocks type character, shows up on their doorstep, Ingrid, who is the woman who was hitchhiking, sees Ivy as a threat because she suddenly sees the magic of Ian as well as the danger of Ian. It's almost like she's there to replace Ingrid.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a chess game. Each one sees threats in the other one, but they all need the others as well. And that's the identifiable part. I think anybody could be able to identify with people that find a partner in life who may be a bad partner, but one
Yeah.
you come to rely upon. And then suddenly a rival for that person's attention shows up unexpectedly. And now who do you trust? Who do you rely on? What are your needs? I mean, you're never sure exactly where the story is going to go. And I think that's true all the way to the end of the film.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes, it is. Very much so.
so, um, so I just feel, we've got a couple of characters who come from families of overachievers, and that's kind of what sends these people on their adventure, because they don't feel that they might ever be able to measure up to the disappointment their family feels, or they imagine their family feels. And then you've got another woman who is the sole survivor of a tragic accident in which her entire family dies. She's the lone survivor, and her guardian is her grandmother, that's not who she wants to rely on in life. She needs other people. She needs her contemporaries. And on top of everything else, she's monophobic, which means she can't live alone. She kind of needs to live with somebody. It just so happens to be her grandmother,
I
until she finds Ingrid and Ian.
I love
Uh,
the way that you put that in the film, because I think the issue of trauma is very much at the forefront of this film. You talked about the car accident, and that was pretty early. What I really like about this movie is that as I'm watching it, I'm like, I feel like I'm watching a very interesting um a very interesting debate, because to your point, I feel like all three characters do need each other. You're 1,000% right on that. What I love about Ivy is that you can tell she's running from something, but you don't know what. And so as you get these little tidbits about her, because my first thought, and I think this will be the thought of the audience too, is why the hell didn't she just immediately call 911? And you actually show her about to call 911, and then she kind of pauses, and then as things unravel, you kind of go, oh, she ironically needed these people in her life as much as they actually needed a place to live. And that's like, in that juxtaposition I found really fascinating. um
I mean, she can't live alone. She
yeah,
literally
exactly.
can't live alone.
So from your perspective, because I know that because I know reading up as far as on your journey, you moved from the East Coast out to the West Coast, similarly to very similarly to, oh my gosh, I just lost the character's name. Help me out.
Ian, Ingrid.
Ingrid, thank you. Very similar to her.
Well, actually, all three of them. I bet somewhere in the middle of the film, Ingrid actually says to Ivy, "The three of us started out in New York, and we all wound up in Las Vegas."
Yeah.
But
So with that being part of your journey, I mean, so I moved I was born in California, then I moved to Austin, and then I moved out here in back out here to Vegas or to Nevada in God, decade. So I've been like 2013-ish is when I moved out here. Um, Definitely a culture shock from Texas and California, but still enough things that I recognize that I really enjoy. What was the culture shock for me, like for you moving out, moving from East Coast all the way out here?
I don't know that there was a culture shock. You know, I arrived late in 2018, and my last movie called The Last was coming out in 2019. So I was frantically busy running around the country all the way to England, opening the movie. And so 2019, I was kind of a part timer here. Then 2020 began, and the pandemic began.
Yeah.
And I kind of was a hermit for those first 2 years. And it was because of that, because here I was in a new environment, and I never really had a chance at first to for culture shock to set in, because I didn't get to know what the culture was. I didn't
Mhm.
get to know who people were, and that's really what inspired the story. Who are these people? Who are my neighbors? Who are the people that live not on the strip, not anywhere near the strip? I mean, I live in Summerlin, and I said, who are these people? I can hear a pin drop on the streets of Summerlin. That's not the Las Vegas people know about. So I
Yeah.
said, what are the circumstances by which somebody may find themselves having to discover life in Las Vegas? And not the life the tourists know. That was the tourist life was the only life I knew about Las Vegas before I moved here. And I've discovered wondrous things about it since I emerged from the throes of the pandemic. The New York Times wrote an article the other day about some sculptor who has some new exhibition going on at it's not Bellagio, it's one of the other strip casinos. And there was not one word about the fact that there's this remarkable museum, all dedicated to the work of one woman who recently died, near Centennial, which is a place no tourist even knows exists.
No.
Uh, Centennial Hills.
Yeah.
So
I only know about that because I have friends in Vegas. So, so
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I don't know if I answered your question,
Oh no, you
but
did. You did.
that was kind of my story in a nutshell. And once the idea, I don't know how these things happen. It happens organically when I write a script. Once the idea, which I'd never employed before, of writing the three main characters and calling them Ivy, Ian, and Ingrid, that alone, there's so much commonality in their names, and yet they're so different from each other. And so, there's a little bit of talk about that too. Everything else, suddenly just emerged from not just my imagination, but my own past. The strangers I met when I first moved from New York to California. As you moved from California, was it California to Texas to Nevada?
Yes.
And anytime anybody, there are people that we know who grew up in Los Angeles and never their entire lives leave Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Um, and I think those lives can be very comfortable. They can be very secure, but they're not very adventurous. They don't, broaden anybody's horizons very much. And I like the idea of people who are peripatetic, whose horizons by their own making are limitless. Even though that can lead to gleaming futures, success, or danger and indecision, triumph, and tragedy. So, but not the people who live in one place their whole lives. That's pretty set. And if that's what you want to do, do it. But those aren't the people I know. That's not me. And those aren't the characters that I want to create.
So I find it interesting that you say that because I found that the film very similar to Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You do go outside. There's a couple places points where they go to this they go to the store and they like go like smoke a joint like out in like a park and all that. But for the most part, a lot of the film is contained within the house itself. But I almost feel like the house is almost like its own character in the sense of the way that the tension does start to ramp up and you start to see the cracks start to form between the three of them. Um, when it came to Ivy and Ingrid, I did find it interesting. There's this one point they're having this conversation about how they grew up, and it starts to feel like it definitely starts to feel flirtatious. Like there is this point where um, maybe one of them could pull the other one away potentially from Ian. And I found it very interesting. I want to ask you if this was intentional. Was it intentional to kind of have it be female focused for the first hour and then kind of sprinkle Ian in? Because Ian's in the first hour, but it really does feel like it's more Ivy and Irene based as opposed to the back half of the film.
Well, I think that the suggestion of kind of sexual activity or sexual games being played between Ingrid and Ivy, I think they're just testing each other in those scenes. They're feeling each other out. But the character of Ian, even though he isn't on screen a lot of the time for the first hour, they are both talking about him a lot.
Yes.
In fact, I could make an argument that the first half of the film is all about Ian. Ingrid is where she is because of the journey Ian took her on. Ivy is endlessly fascinated by this guy who, the first time she sets eyes on him, she's watching him peeing.
Yeah, which
And
caught me completely off guard.
and then yet the next time she wants to talk to him, he doesn't let her in. He literally does not let her in the door.
Yes.
And then even sneaks out, slurks out past her when she's sleeping because he's more comfortable sleeping outside in dirt than he is in a comfortable bed that he and Ingrid find available to them when they find an open condo door. Anyway, it's very much deliberate, and yeah, not only in the beginning it's Ingrid and Ivy testing each other, both spiritually, physically, and truthfully. Who's lying and who's telling the truth is a big thing. Ingrid consistently, from the beginning of the movie almost, challenges Ivy about whether there really is a grandmother on her way to meet her at this condominium. She's the first time we hear about that is 10 minutes into their conversation
Yeah.
in the park, where she says, "Is your grandmother really coming here?" And that's uncertain almost all the way to the end of the film. Is she lying? Is she lying? And we start to doubt her too, since she has this condition called monophobia. She can't live alone. And remember, from the time they encounter each other in this otherwise empty condominium, the clock is ticking.
Yes.
Because even though Ingrid and Ian have made this place their temporary residence, their intention is to finally, after 2 or 3 years, leave Las Vegas and run off to Mexico. Now, why are they going to do that? I have my own theories, but that gets too deep into the film. But Ivy too. But they're on a clock because this grandmother, fact or fiction, may be about to arrive. Now, Ivy didn't call the cops on them, but maybe Grandma will. So their time in this place is limited from the very beginning. And Ivy kind of feels the same way. She wants to know these are people who might as well be family to her. Her family's gone. And the last person she wants to be her guardian or her partner in life is her grandmother. So the clock is ticking for Ivy too. And that's kind of dramatic and, and suspenseful from the very beginning of the movie, I think.
So I do have to ask, because I think to do a film like this where it's so um not only intellectually heavy at points with the philosophy that's being talked about, but so dialogue heavy, you really have to trust the people that you're putting in these roles. And I thought Claire, Brian, and Sarah did an amazing job. Talk to me about like casting them and having that confidence that they could go ahead and perform their material in the way they did, because I think everyone nails, like, it really felt like everyone knew the assignment and kind of knew what they needed to bring to each character. So yeah, can you kind of talk to me about that?
Yeah, these three are remarkable people, and endlessly talented. And you're right, I had to guess correctly when I cast them that there would be the chemistry between them, the trust between them, and that they would have the kind of talent that could handle a film that was character driven and dialogue driven, for the most part. We cast a wide net. Again, it was late in COVID when we cast the movie, and the one thing I determined very quickly is that there are no actors in Las Vegas. So I couldn't cast the film in Las Vegas. The three leads, I was willing to fly them in from anywhere in the country, frankly, anywhere in the world, if I could find them. We had literally 500 submissions for the three leading roles.
Holy crap.
Half of those I dismissed out of hand, either because they were way off physically, or their audition tape was disappointing. But the funny thing is, we wound up with about 15 finalists for Ian. We wound up with about 15 finalists for Ivy. But Sarah, who plays Ingrid,
Yeah.
it was kind of a slam dunk. Her first audition tape, she lived in San Francisco, in Northern California.
Mm.
And her first audition tape was so knock you off your feet, spot on, brilliant.
Okay.
We saw a lot of people. I didn't cast her that moment, but I kind of knew right away she was Ingrid. Ivy was, she scared me. When I looked at her first audition, there's an otherworldly aspect to her look, to her voice, and it was almost too good to be true. She almost looked like Goldilocks.
Yeah.
She was just physically, you were transfixed by her. I showed the tape to my producer. I showed it to a woman in San Diego, an actress who I've known for decades, who I trust, when it comes to casting decisions.
Mm.
And when I showed it to my producer, he had the same instinct I did, that you couldn't take your eyes off of her. And the actress in San Diego, I showed it to her. She said, "What about her accent?" I said, "What accent?" And then when I watched it again, I realized I was so blown away by what I was hearing, what I was looking at, that I didn't realize she had a little bit of an accent. And it was only later, when I got to meet her, that I found out she was born in Mississippi.
Mm.
And she thought she lost a lot of the remnants that were there during the audition by the time we actually filmed it. And then with Ian, it came down to Brian and one very talented actor in New York, but they were so radically different. They were both great actors, and I had to decide which one was going to be the object of this fascination that both, and who could protect Ingrid, but could also, be a threat at the same time. And I think Brian was. Now, then I had a guess as to whether they would have chemistry with each other. I decided we were going to put them in the same Airbnb for the 3 weeks we were filming the movie. Well, before we even got to that, it turned out by that point, they all lived in California. during pre-production, without me, without my tutelage, without my guidance, they would get together constantly on Zoom to rehearse.
Oh, that's
Ingrid,
awesome.
Sarah, who lived in Northern California, once or twice flew down to Los Angeles so they could rehearse together.
Wow.
And by the time they showed up at the Airbnb, it was like three siblings who loved each other.
That's so
Brian brought
cool.
the guitar, and they were constantly singing and drinking wine, and they were bosom buddies from the time that they arrived. So that kind of trust is not just invaluable; it's essential
Yeah.
to making a film like this, where they need to trust me as their director as much as they need to trust each other. As you know, there were some intimate scenes that are very organic to the film, especially in the first half of the film. It's not about sex. It's not about. There really is almost no on-screen intimations of sex in the movie, but there are candid scenes that require trust, and that trust has to be there between the three of them, and it has to be there. They have to trust me, and I spent a long time when it got down to the finalists. I spent many hours on Zoom, on the phone, and then once I cast them, I flew to San Francisco, and then I drove to California twice because there was no way I was going to make a film. This is the first time I had cast virtually. My
Oh, wow.
previous 7 films were all cast from the very preliminary auditions face to face, and it took a while for me to grow accustomed to it. I never did. I would much prefer on my next to go back to face to. But the great thing about the actors in my films, I've been blessed with some great casting directors, but also I have a tendency to know who to give the role to. When I cast Jonathan Groff, who's about to win his first Tony Award on Sunday,
Hmm.
in the lead in my 4th movie called 12:30, nobody knew who he was, but I knew he was a superstar. I shouldn't say nobody. He had been in one Broadway play that I hadn't seen in a musical and had been nominated for a Tony Award, but I'd never heard of him. He had done one film in a small role, an Ang Lee movie that I sought out, but he was only on screen for 5 minutes. But I cast him, and he delivered in spades, and I could not be more proud of his success. Justin,
Jeff, Josh, we have to do one more question because we have to jump to the next interview.
Okay, cool.
okay,
Yeah.
I'll tie that one up. I'll just say, so my actors are everything in my movies.
Yeah, and I think you absolutely nailed the casting. Since you got to get out of here, I'll throw out one more quick question for you. Once they got to the end of the movie, I won't lie, I felt a lot of
Oh,
different
don't give
things.
anything away.
Oh yeah, no, no, no. Um, it, the end of the film felt like a very hearty meal that I really needed to sit with and reflect on. I watched this a couple days ago, and then I watched it again this morning, and I had that same feeling. Without giving anything away, and I know that's hard, is there is there a message you want the audience to take away from this film?
I I don't know. Yeah, never give up. I think there's a great catharsis at the end of the film, unexpected, and I think that no matter what befalls you in life, don't give up. If you see this gleaming future ahead of you, or as a teenager, you see something, you see that brass ring, you say, I have to have it. Don't let obstacles get in your way. You'll find friends in your life, you'll find enemies in your life, and sometimes it's vice versa. But
Yeah,
it's tenacity, and don't be scared.
I love that. Um, Jeff, sir, before I let you get out of here, I just have to say I thought this was incredible. The fact that you wrote and directed this, I thought you did a great job with this movie. I'm looking forward to recommending this to people. I already recorded my review, so I'll definitely share that when it's live. I know this is going to be in theaters in July. I'm excited for people to see this and have what I believe are going to be some really fruitful, in-depth conversations, because there's a lot to break down in this movie. Can you please tell people where they can see the film in July, and like if they can find you on socials, all that fun stuff, real quick?
Yeah, the world premiere, because the entire film was filmed in Las Vegas, is going to be July 27th, starting July 27th at the Regal Red Rock in Las Vegas. That's June 27th, June, not July. July, it'll open in New York on July 5th at the Quad Cinema. It'll open in Los Angeles on July 19th. At the Royal in West LA, and also at the Town Center in Encino. And then it'll be a slow rollout, because something I love doing in every major city is to show up opening weekend and do limitless Q&As. So I'll look for me too, because I'll be there.
Awesome. And people, please go out and support this movie. I'm telling y'all, it's definitely something that's going to be give you a lot to think about and a lot to talk about. Jeff, again, sir, I really appreciate making the time. Good luck with the film. I hope this does well. And thanks again for making the time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Anytime, Jeff. You take care.
Take care.